Hey everyone, Andre here along with Jake and Joey to discuss the latest round of Switch 2 rumors because we can't get enough of them. Apparently the world can't get enough of them. Seems like every day now there's a new leak or a rumor or who knows what. But it does, it is starting to feel like where there's smoke, there's fire. And there is a lot of smoke right now. It's picking up, it's getting hard to breathe. So Jake, run us through the latest round of rumors that have come out about the Switch 2 so we can, see, discuss them, dissect them, do whatever it is we do with them.
Totally. Okay, so here's what I've got from you. These have been bubbling up over the course of like a week, but then today, Eurogamer published a report corroborating a lot of this information. Then VGC comes out, corroborates a bunch of it too. So first from Eurogamer, what we have is that at Gamescom in Cologne, Germany, there were a bunch of behind closed doors demonstrations of the Switch 2 hardware for developers, developing partners, that kind of thing. And what apparently was running there was a souped up version of Zelda Breath of the Wild that was designed to hit the Switch 2's beefier target specs. And they do put a note there to be clear, this is not like indicative of a Breath of the Wild DX or anything coming to Switch 2. This is just something that is done when showing off hardware at this stage in time. And then VGC comes through and they say, yeah, that totally happened. But also they showed Epic's The Matrix Awakens Unreal Engine 5 tech demo. This came out a little bit while ago. You can download it now on like your PlayStation and your Xbox. And it's this crazy, on the Switch 2, it's showing NVIDIA DLSS upscaling technology, advanced ray tracing, supposed to be comparable graphics to what you see on a PS5 or a Series X. And those are kind of the big things going on right now. And then we've got a third person coming into the mix here. This is Universo Nintendo. This is Necro Felipe. We've reported on him a couple of times now. And they say, yes, I'm going to co-sign everything that they just said, but it's this system has 12 gigabytes of RAM, and everybody's been saying that the Matrix demo is using DLSS 3.5, but it's actually DLSS 3.1. Really getting in the weeds. It's not. Yes, it's like technically worse, but it's not like, I don't know.
It's a minor downgrade,
that this is doing
right?
DLSS at all is, the fact that we're doing this Matrix Awakens demo. I don't know if either of you have seen this. That demo is crazy.
It is crazy.
It's oh man. What a time.
And DLSS 3, for those who don't know, we have DLSS 2, which does the upscaling. So it can take an image that's like 720p and then make it like 4K even, and like a convincing 4K. But 3, from what I know, it basically produces more frames. So a game can run at 30 FPS and then but DLSS can make it look like it's running at 60. That's like the very rudimentary explanation I have for that. So yeah.
Are you saying, Joey, it can make it look as good as my parents' TV smoothing option?
Oh man, I hope it looks a little better than that.
Okay, so we're starting to get some information on specs. Seemingly 12 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, I'm not a super tech head, but I see that number and I know that's a good thing. That's 3 times the current amount of the Switch, I believe. And I think that's kind of insane because that almost brings up the parity of the current generation, which I think the Series X and PS5 both have 16 gigabytes, I believe. So we are getting ridiculously close, assuming the Switch 2 is still, whatever this next platform is still portable, which it almost certainly is. So that is, and the fact that it's running the Matrix demo. This is, if you've seen it, it is a very impressive tech showcase. And if the Switch 2 is able to pump out anything that, is akin to the visual quality we're seeing on the current generation of systems, that's amazing. That is impressive. And that's why it's almost hard to believe, because Nintendo has not been one who historically has targeted, being a leading console in terms of, power or tech. It's been a long time since they aimed for that. Now, with that being said, the Switch actually was, fairly powerful for its time, although it was quickly outclassed by by the other home consoles. But still, do we believe it? Do we think that is credible? Do we think, and what do we think that means for games to come to it?
What do you think, Joey?
Oh, man, like you said, it is really hard to believe. This sounds like something some random 4chan user would come up with, honestly. I don't know if it's just because I'm trying to really lower my expectations on the specs of this next machine, because historically Nintendo does not care about that stuff, like not since the GameCube days. I know like when the Switch was announced, they kind of made it like a big deal that this is running on NVIDIA Tegra technology, but even then the Tegra X1 was already kind of an outdated chip when it came out. So it's really interesting to hear all this, especially hearing outlets like VGC corroborate this. So that's why I'm not outright denying it, because I feel like you said, there's smoke, there's fire, and you got these well-known outlets basically like saying, yeah, this is true, this is definitely what's happening. So yeah, I don't want to say I don't believe it, but if it is true, that's insane, and I don't know if this will be a cheap machine when it comes out, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think if anybody's gonna have boots on the ground and know what was going on in Cologne, Germany, I would hope it was Eurogamer. But I actually think I believe all of this. I feel like we see comparable stuff in gaming and in tech right now. The Steam Deck. This is a base like $400 device that has 16 gigabytes of RAM in it. And I think if you look at just gaming in general right now, you have something like the Steam Deck, but you also have like the Xbox Series S. All the way up to the Series X and the PS5. And of course, I think this all really kind of started with the Switch. Games are just more scalable now than they used to be. And I think our system architectures have started to get closer and closer together. So you do hear these stories of it being easier to port stuff to the between consoles, and just like, oh, okay, we can have a version of this game that scales down because that's how these systems are made now. You even see that on the Switch right now with things like Witcher 3 running on Switch, So I think that's just kind of what we are looking at right now in terms of the gaming landscape. And I also think that the Epic Matrix demo makes sense because we kind of have some breadcrumbs there in that Pikmin 4, weirdly, runs on Unreal Engine. And very strange for a Nintendo game, makes me think that maybe there is something going on between Epic and Nintendo. They have been doing stuff behind the scenes. Maybe they are partnering on the Nintendo Switch 2 in a big way. We're gonna see some like crazy epic Unreal demo when they reveal this thing. I could totally see that happening. I could even see something like Metroid Prime 4. They re-reveal that and it's like a big epic Unreal game. I think it makes sense. Yeah.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense, Jake, especially because, the Ice Pikmin are basically Neo from the Matrix, which already, makes complete sense.
Right.
You raised some good points there, actually. I think the Steam Deck is a great kind of baseline, because that is already over a year old at this point, right?
Yep.
We're like a year and a half, maybe? And what was the cost on that again?
The base is $399. I know that Valve is like losing a little bit on all of these, but there's also a lot in a Steam Deck that's not going to be in a Switch. So it's so there is a push and pull there, and I do think it's a relevant data point when discussing what this system could be capable of.
And Nintendo historically doesn't, like to lose money on consoles, but they could take the hit because they have the software that can make up that difference easily. Yep. So that's why this actually does lend credibility to this, especially with, the other point you brought up of easing the ability to port games from other consoles. Like, if they can close that gap to a point where it looks good enough on Switch, that could tip the tables, tip the tide, or change the tide, whatever, to the point that people may just consider, maybe I only need the Switch, at least for the foreseeable future, Maybe I don't need the other consoles. Maybe I will make the Switch my primary, version of this game rather than it being the secondary version as we're seeing in many cases. So I think those are all good points that support the idea that maybe this is actually going to be a pretty powerful system.
Because I think it's hard for a lot of people to believe PS5 quality graphics on a Nintendo Switch 2. But when you really think about it, how many PS5 exclusive games are there? True exclusive. Not that many. And that's because, it's not because like, oh man, it's just like, I don't know, there's like development issues, but it's because how development environments have changed and it is possible to scale things down.
Right.
And then I think you ask the question of like, okay, can we get PS4 quality games on a Nintendo Switch 2? I think that's an easy yes. And the difference there is not that big. The difference is, you know what I mean? We're talking about things that I think you can quantify and scale down and make sense in a way now that my stance is that when the Switch 2 gets revealed, we're talking about 7-8-year-old hardware now going from the Switch to the Switch 2. I think there's a really good chance that they planned on a Nintendo Switch Pro that was going to support 4K. There was the microprocessor shortage maybe they cut that out completely, making for what is going to be an even bigger jump than was originally planned. I think it's going to really knock people's socks off. And I think the cool thing about it is that you're going to see a lot of, because of the success of the Switch and the ease of developing for this platform, you're going to see a lot of really cool third-party games that you wouldn't have expected show up on this Nintendo Switch 2 all of the sudden. And I think that's going to be really cool just for the ecosystem and the platform in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I also think you're onto something there where what there may have... I personally do feel like the OLED is meant to be more, and it just wasn't. It was pulled back. It was shortly after, the pandemic that screwed up the, it created chip shortages and all that. So, but, putting that aside, it has been a lot, nearly, by the time the thing releases, it'll be the better part of a decade since we've had new hardware from Nintendo, which is crazy. And that's going to really, no matter what, you're going to have a big jump there, regardless of how much Nintendo, is a driving factor of that or not. And it's, it is, on the one hand, it's exciting. We're going to get better running games, hopefully. They're going to look good. We're going to have, even Nintendo's own first-party games will benefit from this, especially if everything's running at, possibly 4K. If they're with the DLSS upscaling, because that's effectively free. Like, you're cheaply able to render a game at a higher resolution than it actually is being rendered at, which is why I think, PS5 quality, as you're saying, Jake. Hold on, let me get on camera, there you go. That's doing a lot of heavy lifting there, I think.
Yeah.
Because you can have PS5 quality without it literally being at that power level, right? You can make it look close enough.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? The Switch 1, the current Switch, already does upscaling. Not with DLSS, but with AMD's equivalent FSR. So, and just recently, No Man's Sky came out with an update on the Switch that support FSR 2. Not just 1, 2. And 2 is almost as good as, DLSS 2.0. I saw some screenshot comparisons of how, the game looks without FSR and with FSR 2. And I was just thinking, okay, this confirms, the next Switch is going to have some form of upscaling, if the current Switch already has it.
I mean, it's already able to go between handheld and docked mode. It's, you know what I mean? This is built into the way that the system works. So it makes sense that they would have an understanding of this technology that would only multiply by a significant factor in this many years.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, they're both, dynamically changing the resolution depending on how you play the game, or even where in the game you are. But on top of that, Nintendo themselves, as Joey was suggesting, they've been using this upscaling, not the DLSS technology exactly, but the software-based one, in their own games, like Switch Sports, Splatoon 3, I believe, and I think maybe Pikmin as well, I forget exactly. So yeah, they're no stranger to this. So it is all adding up. It's all making a lot of sense at this point. And that's exciting. On the other hand, to be honest, I also don't even care that much. As long as the games I want to play look good enough and run well enough, I'm fine. I'll take better graphics, but for me, what I really want from this is a faster loading system. That's my number one thing. I am so sick of on Xbox, it being able to load instantly, and on Switch, I'm sitting there for an hour. It feels like it's not an hour, but it feels like an hour, and it's a big barrier. Especially I feel like as people are getting, as our attention spans are shrinking, you can get instant gratification anywhere, any number of places. That is a barrier to entry, and there are many times where I'm I just want to turn on my Switch. I will just play it on something else because it'll load quicker there.
Yeah, it's especially on Pikmin 4, those loading times. Granted, there's not that many loading, it's just between areas, and you're in those areas for a while. But Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, I'm just this is unplayable for me because these loading times between battles are just brutal. And I'm just
Me too, Joey.
Yeah, my goodness, I need some form of fast loading in the next system.
Yeah, that game in specific, man, that was brutal. I think they might have a silver bullet in regards to loading. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I wonder if I could really see them dropping micro SD cards. And I know that sounds crazy, but I think that there is such a wide net of quality that you can get a micro SD card in. And I experienced this on my Steam Deck. Thought this was the craziest thing imaginable. Had whatever SD card I had lying around there, and the difference in downloading a game to that SD card, the right speed between a high quality one and a low quality one, so significant. It freaked me out. So I'm sure there's things that they can do on their end to like fix that or whatever, but I could definitely see a scenario in which this thing has a certain number, like a 256 type of deal, gigabytes on board, and then they're doing something special with their physical media, with their game cartridges, where they are different. That's part of some rumors that we have seen, that there is an update to the cartridges that they are using, which is to be expected. Those cartridges are the technology there is really old. So all of that stuff coming together, I'm really curious about just like those little things and how they're going to tighten it up. And so much of, I think, where our imagination with the Switch right now is, the Switch 2, is in the iteration of this platform that we all really like. I don't think too many people are talking about any big crazy changes coming to this thing other than making it stronger, faster, sharper. That's kind of, those are the headlines. And and kind of a separate conversation, I'm curious if that will end up being enough for the people out there.
Yeah, I mean, Nintendo has repeated over and over, even recently, that they always try to do something new with the hardware, and that seemingly suggests that there may be some new feature here. With that being said, I mean, I think it would be enough just to have a more powerful system. The Switch is wildly successful as is. People haven't tired of its unique feature being its portability and the fact that you can easily play it at home as well, and that's still a unique feature going into this next generation. The only competition it really has is the Steam Deck, which isn't really, but it's very much its own ecosystem. And even then, it's not quite doing the full thing the Switch is with like the detachable controllers and all that. Mm-hmm. So I think it would be enough. With that being said, I hope there is more to it, just because I like novel features and how that benefits games and gameplay. But yeah, I do want to stress that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, but this is also going from what I've heard myself too. Mm-hmm. What's been shown at Gamescom isn't like the actual like hardware. People aren't actually seeing the Switch 2. They're seeing dev kits, which are basically showing what it'll be capable of. So we don't really know what the thing's going to look like. It could look like a Switch. Maybe it'll have some other crazy form factor. Maybe it'll have a dual screen again. Who knows? That's my point. So
yeah, and you're 100% correct. It's essentially a computer that is like targeting the same thing that the Switch 2 is going to target, and which leaves so many questions up in the air, because the second you start talking about a system capable of this kind of performance, you have to wonder what that translates to in the handheld. Like, what even is the resolution of that handheld screen?
Right.
I don't know. Sometimes I think about this sometimes, and I'm like, is a 1080p screen even like necessary? I don't know. Sometimes I think no.
I really don't think it is.
Too.
It depends. Maybe it
I don't
depends
think it is
on
either.
Maybe it depends on the screen size. But even then, like the OLED model 7-inch screen, and that screen looks really nice already, and it's 720p. What matters more is the quality of the screen, more so than like the resolution. But rumor has it like this thing's not even gonna have an OLED screen, so I don't know.
Yeah, at least in the base model. Yeah, it probably could be an easy upgrade down the line, but yeah, that sucks. But it's gonna be hard to go back from the OLED. It's so funny. When I first got the OLED, I'm like, it's not that big of an improvement. And I went back to the original Switch, I'm like, oh my god, this is actually a pretty substantial increase in picture quality.
Oh, especially if you're like me and I have vivid mode on all the time, just pouring it into my
same
eyeballs.
Here. Yep,
oh my god, yeah, I
that's
love
what
vivid
I want.
mode.
It's great. So yeah, I don't know if you necessarily need 1080p, although I'm sure a lot of people would, want that. But especially because when you consider the other ramifications too, like the increased draw on battery life, and then do you need a bigger battery at that point? It can just, it just can have a cascading effect that can affect things like the weight and the price of the thing. So I could see Nintendo wanting to keep the price and weight down and the battery consumption down by having a lower resolution screen, possibly 720p. Doesn't the Steam Deck use something higher than 720p that's not a full 1080? Or
I was just going to bring this up. I have learned from the Steam Deck that what I need handheld is 900p, 40 frames per second. Turns out that is beautiful on a handheld. I'm a 60 frames per second psychopath, but I gotta tell you, handheld 40 frames, delicious. So if we could rock something like that on this thing, I feel like that is possible, doable, and I actually think that the Switch 2 might be positioning itself in this way to have a pretty good battery life at launch. If this is, in the handheld, if this is kind of targeting what we think it's targeting. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a really big jump. I think also, I've been thinking a lot about this, going from Wii to Wii U. I think that was supposed to be like Nintendo's going HD. This is the big graphical jump. But it doesn't feel
New
like that.
Super Mario Brothers U, baby. Check out how good our graphics are.
Okay. Thank you for backing me up on this. It's not quite that in my actual mind, and I kind of think that this might be it. I kind of think that like graphics are gonna be like a big talking point when this thing is revealed. We're gonna be seeing things that like are really going to change the paradigm of how we look at Nintendo games.
You know what? I don't think we will, honestly.
Oh,
I think we're going to see games that look like they do now. They're going to be sharper. They'll maybe run, although Nintendo's games are usually pretty consistent. I think they'll look sharper and maybe marginally upgraded assets. Higher resolution textures. I don't think, hey, maybe I'll be wrong, but I mean, Nintendo, we can already see this with how they handle the Switch. Like, they're not aiming for photorealism. So the benefits that they'll get won't be as much as for developers that are aiming for photorealism. Not that they won't be able to do things beyond what they do currently, but I don't think it'll be that big of a jump. I mean, consider that one of the games that they're supposedly demoing here is an upgraded version of Breath of the Wild, which I believe is just better performance and resolution. Again, capable of more, I'm sure, but I mean, especially if it's running the Matrix demo. But Nintendo also, I don't think they want to blow their budgets out either, and with increased assets comes increased budgets, increased time, more developers needed. It's, again, a cascading problem, and I think we're going to see similar to what we do now. Like, even on the Switch, we're not generally seeing things well beyond what they were doing on the Wii U, and the Wii U, especially for people who may have forgotten to skip that generation, Nintendo had a big problem just getting into the HD era. That's why there were big gaps in release. They didn't have the pipeline ready to go, and I'm sure they're better suited now for any jumps, and it wouldn't be as big of a jump in any case. But I myself am not expecting to be blown away by what Nintendo does with this thing. But maybe I'm wrong.
There's the expectations that I'm trying to set for myself too, because it's like, yeah, Nintendo, like historically, other than the GameCube, which was just a huge anomaly, right? That thing was like more powerful than the PS2, so that was crazy. But now it's like, all they're talking about right now, all they're focused on is just delivering great games, which is totally fine, because great games trumps graphics in my opinion. But even then, Pikmin 4 just came out. That game is gorgeous. So, and I'll say with Metroid Prime Remastered. Now, like this year, just two of the best looking Switch games just came out. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting. I do think, of course, better specs lead to, of course, better graphics, and this new Switch system, whatever it's going to be called, Nintendo Focus. It's not going to be called that, but of course you'll get games with those better graphics, of course. But like you said, Andre, I don't think Nintendo's going to harp in on that too much. They're not going to be like, buy this thing because graphics. They're not going to slap that on the box.
Let me tell you where my head is at, though.
Okay.
Fortnite. I'm thinking about Fortnite, and I'm thinking, I really mean this. I'm thinking about that crazy, like, whatever they call it, that update that they did to its graphics that knocked my freaking socks
overnight off. Yeah, no, I hear you. I thought that too. I'm like, oh man, this is a big improvement. So
yeah, and so much of that is lighting, and so much of that is like, I've been watching these Unreal demos, and they're like, now I don't really believe them, but they're like, it's easy, it just kind of happens, and I'm like, all right. But if there truly is a little epic partnership here, and they've got something going on, and we see some of these Unreal Engine Nintendo produced games, I think that could lead to just like almost it feeling like random, but just because their development, like architecture, background, whatever it is, them like behind the scenes, because something is changing, and because they go, okay, now we're doing this new thing, we're developing in the Unreal Engine, and we're doing X, Y, and Z for this new hardware. I could see a byproduct of that being everything just gets a little bit of a facelift in a way that is noticeable. Yeah.
If we're talking lighting, just imagine a new Luigi's Mansion on Switch 2 launch title, especially when we're coming off of the re-release of the 3DS Dark Moon on the system, which looks kind of mid. That increase in lighting could be amazing. Yeah, no, I mean, no matter what, we're going to see a lot of, like, secondary benefits from this. And I think, as you're kind of hinting at, too, that third-party developers will really benefit from this. If we get, like, a Fortnite that looks as good on my Switch as it does on my Series X, like, hey, that's awesome. That's great. So, yeah, I mean, it's exciting. And we'll see, what Nintendo does with that. So,
cool.
It's very exciting stuff either way. Like if I see that Matrix demo running on, like, the Switch 2, whatever it's going to be called when they announce it, I have a feeling that'd be something they'd show off, even, like, just to demonstrate the power of it. if they have a Switch 2 presentation or whatever, I will still be, of course, very excited, right? But I also
That kind of reminds me.
What's that?
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say though, like, I still don't think Nintendo's gonna make that like the big selling point of the system.
No.
But it will still be a selling point, you know.
Yeah, it's actually, no, it will be. I think it has to be a selling point because they have to differentiate it from the original, unless there's some crazy new feature here that, that really does set it apart inherently. But I'm kind of skeptical of that because I don't even know what more they could add, except for maybe one other possible rumor floating around, right, Jake?
Oh, that's right. Okay, now this is I appreciate the segue, but it's not perfect because I don't think this is part of the hardware. This is not like launches in the box with the system. This is like a separate thing that you get. There is a rumor going around that there is a Nintendo VR device, a headset that Nintendo is collaborating with Google on this. Now, when I say the word collaborating, I need everybody to relax. Nintendo and Google, they're not like chilling out, having conversations about how to do VR. This is like Google has some factory where they make these kinds of, displays, and Nintendo's like, hey, let's like strike a deal. Like I think that's like the level of collaboration we're talking about. But there is we're talking like single micro LED panels, and the rumor is that Nintendo is like ordering a bunch of these panels, is like working on a VR headset that is independent from the Switch 2, but utilizes it in some way, shape, or form. And I think that this makes sense. So first off, this rumor comes to us via Nash Weedle, who is a Spanish leaker, most well known for leaking Metroid Dread very far in advance. Makes sense. Mercury Steam out there in Spain. So I think that they do have legitimate sources, but we have this whole conversation about the Switch and video games and like scaling and how that environment is different from how it was maybe a decade ago. And the VR kind of fits nicely into here because you're doing that in VR. You're scaling a version of a game down to this platform on whatever device. And if this, the Switch already a system with the property of displaying to a different screen, like that basic of an idea. I think that kind of goes hand in hand with a VR platform. So I could see this being done. I could also see this being some R&D that never goes anywhere.
Yep.
So
Same.
it's so I don't know.
There's no money in VR. I am sorry. There just isn't. The VR has been niche for like 10 plus years, even longer than that, and I just don't see this going anywhere. If it's true, for one, like no disrespect to that leaker, anyone could have predicted Metroid Dread. Anyone.
Now, Joey, let me give you a little twist to this leak might change your tune. Now, this leaker also says that we're talking mixed reality with this headset.
Even nicher.
Yeah. Well, but everybody, I'm sure GameXplain longtime fans know, I've been saying Nintendo is obsessed with AR for like the better part of a year and a half now. I think every time we talk about the Switch 2, I'm like, AR, it's gonna
They had the AR
happen.
cards for the 3DS too, so even longer than that.
And Super Nintendo World, there's like some, it's all in that same genre of reality, I would say. And this particular leaker says that there is a mixed reality component to this headset. So it's not just looking at a screen, maybe it is like looking through something. And we have seen some rumors here and there of the Switch 2 having a camera element. So all this stuff kind of coming together in a weird way. And I could see it happen. I could see it. And I think what you need to do is you need to see VR in your head. You need to put that aside, and you need to say, Labo. You need to say, they did that thing. They did that weird thing. That was a little thing off to the side, and like 2 games used it. And I think it might be a similar situation here. I could see them being like, here's a stupid headset for 2 games. Enjoy. I could see it. Yeah.
That's honestly, Jake, that's kind of what I want. Beyond, hopefully beyond 2 games.
Yeah.
I honestly had a great time with Labo. I thought it was a ton of fun, and how like this relatively cheap bundle of cardboard transformed your Switch into a pretty decent VR device. Like it was surprisingly impressive, even if it couldn't function as its own, platform. And it's funny that they're collaborating seemingly based on the rumor with Google, considering Google also had their own cardboard VR, which was their own cardboard device you could build for your phone. Anyways, I don't know if there's necessarily no money in VR, but the we do know that the PlayStation VR 2 is seemingly tanking right now, based on early reports. I don't know how accurate those are. Maybe it's doing better than I thought. I have one myself. Have not touched it since like day one, which is so sad. And but I think part of it is because it's expensive and it still requires like a lot of room around you. Like there's a lot of barriers to entry for it. And I think if Nintendo can crack some of those problems, like I think they could be successful with it. Like I think for me, if it's a self-contained unit that you just slot your Switch into, so it's super simple, doesn't require any extra hardware, no wires or anything, like that would be the ideal format. Like you just bring your goggles with you, you have your Switch already, you slot it in, bam. I would use it on a plane if I could. If much like Labo VR, and if they focus on the gameplay experience, it doesn't depend on having like room scale. Like they already have with Labo VR, which again, I really had a blast of those games, and they barely even used VR as we know it. I wasn't walking around, I wasn't using my arms in most cases to do anything. I was playing Zelda Breath of the Wild on like a giant IMAX with terrible resolution, and I had a complete blast. So they focused more on that, made the VR modes like just kind of like easy add-ons for them that require minimal development. I'm okay with that in many cases, and I think it'd be fun if they can offer this at a cheap enough price point that makes sense for people to pick it up as an optional accessory without costing $600. I think at the PSVR 2 does.
Yeah, $550, but might as well be $600.
I even think there's a way, maybe. I think there may be a path forward for this headset too, in not taking the device and putting it in the headset. Maybe there is some kind of like wireless or just a cleaner solution that Nintendo has envisioned, where these glasses do connect to your Switch, maybe the same way they connect to your TV, and maybe that doesn't require a direct connection. So
like a Wii U gamepad.
That's right. That's right. We had that technology figured out a long time ago.
That's right. Star Fox Zero was like an early VR game. I will say real quick.
Yeah.
I just if it comes to mixed reality, assuming any of this happens, that's the thing that interests me the least. I don't care about mixed reality. If I'm playing a game, I want to play the game. I don't care what's happening around me in a gameplay sense. And every instance I've seen of it, like, is super lame. Like, it's just a backdrop that doesn't really add anything. And even if it could add something, I don't want it to. I don't want my room to become the play space. I want the game's world to be the play space.
I gotta tell you, I have a vision. I'm so sorry to bring this up. I have a vision of putting glasses on and seeing like Smash Brothers, but my table is the stage, and that titillates me to no end.
Jake, yes, I'm sure it does. I do not doubt that. I'm sure you'll love it for like 10 minutes, and then you'll be like, this plays terribly. I'm looking down at a weird angle to play this game. And but we had that taste with the 3DS, and it was horrible then too. Albeit it was an early form of it, but I feel like once the novelty wears off, I don't see the appeal. And like, especially if you take your system elsewhere, well then your setup's gonna be different,
Mm-hmm. You're right. Listen. It's one of those things that I think it is not part of the actual system for these reasons that we are talking about. It is a more niche experience. They're not trying to sell VR to tens of millions of people. You know what I mean? They're like on day one at least. But I don't know about you two, but I start reading about all these Switch rumors, Switch 2 rumors, speculation, discussion, and it gets my brain thinking about what is something that I want for this platform. What is something that could like that I would go, oh, that's a selling point. That's not graphics, speed, like those typical enhancements we see from the other console manufacturers. What is something that would pull me in? And I'm thinking a lot about this. Has this come up in either of your brains? Is there something that you've been going, I would like that?
Faster eShop.
Faster.
An eShop that runs. I want the whole thing to be just, I want less friction when using the Switch. That'd be great. But in terms of like, I don't know, actual new features, I mean, it's only really for me, beyond like improved Joy-Cons, I don't really want that much. Like, if you give me Joy-Cons even better, if they can somehow incorporate better motion controls, maybe if they have like a camera tracking it like we have on some VR devices, that'd be great. Better joysticks too, no drift, maybe analog triggers, again, bring those back, and I'm happy. That's all I need. So, improve Joy-Cons, and that'd do it for me. I don't think I need much more, honestly. I wouldn't mind if they went back to the second screen idea, but
I'm with you there too. Like, I don't really need much more. Like, all this stuff that's been rumored is like, that already titillates me, right? Like, just the DLSS, like, the graphics are great. That's cool and all. But, like, if I would go the extra mile beyond that, like that dual screen idea, totally not gonna happen, but I would love it still, because like there's just some games like Super Mario Maker, for example, I just can't play without a second screen. I'm just like, Super Mario Maker 2 is one of the most disappointing games of my entire life because it doesn't utilize that as well as the first game did. But let us customize the damn menu. Come on. Like, give us folders, real folders. Give us like backgrounds, maybe even background music, although that's not too essential. Like most, like I know the PS5 has sound in its menu, but the Xbox doesn't, so I don't really care about that much.
Lock it in. It'll have it. It'll set it apart from the Switch. It'll have like themes and.
I would say lock it in, but I don't know. Nintendo has that thing of it makes sense, so they won't do it. So I'm not sure.
But it'll make them dollars if they sell stuff again. So
you're so right.
I kind of think it will have this because I think a selling point of the Switch 2 is that they're gonna go all in on like colors. I think it's gonna be like there's gonna be different like maybe shells you can put on it or something that you can swap. I think there's gonna be a customization element. I don't know how aware either of you are of this, but like on TikTok, the youths, they love being like a Switch boy or a Switch girl, and you show off like how you customized your Switch, and it's like all this, like the kids love that. Like part of the thing that sets this thing apart from other consoles is that you have a more personal connection to it because it is a handheld, because you do carry it with you. And I think that like there was so little effort in that regard with the original Nintendo Switch, and I kind of see why, but I do think it's something that you come out of the gate and you can see the trailer in your head of like swapping the different colors, and it's like, oh dang, that really sets it apart. Like that's an easy thing to get into consumers' heads. So yeah, I do, and I think themes kind of go hand in hand with that. You can like match them up together.
Not to mention, the PS5 has swappable like plates now. The Xbox Series X has just came out with a Starfield themed sleeve for it. It perfectly fits around the Series X to the point where it just straight up looks like a special edition Xbox. So it's just like, why spend like over hundreds of dollars on a special edition console when you can just buy base plates, or you could just buy this like sleeve for $50 instead of like $400 or like $550. So yeah, that's definitely a market that Nintendo can capitalize on.
New 3DS had the swappable faceplates too.
Oh, I forgot about that. That's right, dude.
Nintendo's already been there. Game Boy Micro going way back. So they could bring it back again, especially because it does seem to be like a hotter thing now than it has been in the past. And I think people would love to customize their Switch. So that's an interesting point, and it's another vehicle for Nintendo to make money, so.
Yeah, and in the world of like fashion, like early 2000s stuff is like back in fashion. And I think like you could see that being reflected in this market as well. That like those like the handhelds that came in all different like colors and stuff were super popular back then. I think you could see kind of an homage to that happen in this tech space. And I kind of think you see it more in like phones and stuff too, from like Apple and stuff like that. Like you see them advertise like, oh, we got the yellow iPhone now, and that's like a marketing point for them. So I could definitely see Nintendo going there. On the subject of Joy-Con, I'm curious to hear, you say you want better Joy-Con, what that means. And we kind of were talking about this behind the scenes the other day. And the thing I kind of came to this weird conclusion where I was like, I think I want the rails to be different. And I want it to be them to have a different system for locking onto the Switch so that you could have them on the side or you could have them on the top. And you can make it a long boy. And
like
I think
Tate mode, however you pronounce it.
Yeah. And I think that like I can see that kind of clearly. I was like, oh man, I see a world in which this thing does have some level of dual screen functionality, and then maybe like in handheld mode, you can emulate that in a weird way by turning it onto its side and like putting those Joy-Con on there. But also
DS
the bigger
emulation.
No, so that was where I was going with this, Joey, is that if you take a Switch, if you've got like a Switch OLED right now and you turn it onto the side, you could fit like, oh, I wish I had my DSi with me, but like this bottom screen is like how big a DS screen is. You could fit those like perfectly on top of each other on a vertically oriented Switch. And that would be a banger on NSO. Oh my god, dude, putting DS games on there, like that'd be so sick. I don't know if that's something you talk about when you reveal a console, but that would get me hyped. I'd be all about that. Plus, I think it would open up gameplay styles if you could do that do that weird thing. I think it'd just be neat. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, to your specific question about how would I improve the Joy-Cons, like I kind of already touched on it. I honestly really do like these. Like, it is worked better. I think they're already a great thing. Maybe make them a little bit bigger. So, you know, the Steam Deck already showed you can make a larger handheld and people will still put up with it. And that thing is huge. So I think they can make the controllers a little bit bigger, so they're a little more comfortable to use when, you know, when using them individually as like its own controller. Yeah, improve the rails, because I don't know if we need 4 rails necessarily, but even on my OLED, which isn't even that old, I barely even take off the Joy-Cons, like one of them just doesn't click on anymore. It just like pops off. I'm like, oh, that's annoying. And yeah, so I really just like a Gen 2 of Joy-Cons. Like I would love for them to actually just make them work better motion controls, better joysticks. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Give them like
me.
formed grips maybe to like
That'd be nice,
I'm also the same way. I'm like the Joy-Cons, it feels weird to me when I use anything else but the Joy-Cons when I'm playing in handheld mode, right? Like but unless it's something like this Switch case right here that like I still use the Joy-Cons, but it gives them a bigger grip. But like those Hori game pads, I think that's what they're called. For some reason, those don't feel right to me. And then I switch back to the Joy-Cons. It feels right to me. So, but also, of course, make these new ones not drift as much. Find a way, Nintendo. Come on.
They have to, yeah.
Have either of you seen the Lenovo Legion Go? Have you seen this?
I have not.
So new handheld, very much like the Steam Deck. Saw a YouTube video on it recently from Dave2D, good YouTuber, and he was showing how they have it's not rails like Joy-Con. There is a different like locking system, and I think it's like magnet assisted, but it looked real sleek. But then the cool thing is, never even thought of this. Thought this was a dope Joy-Con feature. Was that it comes with this little base that you can put your Joy-Con in like this, so it's upright, and he uses it on a table like a mouse. And like
that's cool. That's a great idea.
So imagine, you've got your Joy-Con here, and you're like controlling movement, and then this is like your aim in a first-person shooter game. Cool, one of the coolest things I've seen in a while. I was like, dang, that was genius.
I just looked up images of it. It looks really cool. But I think for this video, I'll show some of his footage because that's really interesting.
It's so cool. I know. I was like, oh, there's so much you could do with this. Yeah.
Well, there's like a few. I mean, there's a few ideas they could probably, like, if they had like a gesture recognition area above the Switch, like if you just like move your hands above it and like interact with the games in some way, that'd be neat. Although we have a touchscreen currently, and barely anyone even uses that thing.
Barely any game uses it. When's the last?
I cannot think of a single time I used the touchscreen on the Switch. Honestly,
Mario Maker 2 is pretty much it for me.
That was it. That was the last time I remember even that thing being utilized. Sometimes when I play a game portably, like a new one, I'm like, oh, does the touchscreen work? Oh, nope, doesn't. Okay.
Man, is the touchscreen out of style?
Well, no, I mean, it's just. I think it's just. It's weird to say because every phone uses a touchscreen. You need it for every phone, but
tablets.
In terms of like gaming, I think it kind of has fallen out of style because aside from mobile gaming, where you need it,
got to bring it back for DS mode.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think part of it is just kind of inconvenient to use, like, especially if you don't have a stylus built in, like, it's just not as easy as on a phone because you're holding it by the controllers, and there's no reason to optimize the game for touchscreen controls if you already have the controllers there. Most people are using them. Right. So, like, I can't really even think of an instance where very few instances where I even needed them, or want them. Not that I wouldn't mind them using more of it, but yeah. I'm trying to think of like what else would we want in a Switch 2? I mean, honestly, for me, VR would be the most exciting thing I think that I can think of. But there have been like some patents I think from Nintendo that they've filed in years past, including I think like scroll wheel triggers, like the center wheel on the mouse. So you can use that for like inventory. Like imagine Tears of the Kingdom, quickly swiping through those thousands of arrow equips you have, and
it'd still be inconvenient because those menus are garbage. But that would be totally interesting. But I
remember.
What I really want on the Switch too, though? Really good games. That's what I want the most.
Yes.
That wheel, really quick, I think that wheel is coming. I would lock that wheel in if I were you. I feel like, I saw somebody spell this out on Twitter the other day. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But they went through like a bunch of recent Nintendo games and they were like, look, this was designed for the wheel. And I went, oh God, you're right. So it's, and one of them was the Tears of the Kingdom menu.
Totally.
So I just see that very clearly for them. I also have always thought that was cool. And I think that's a cool iteration on like the modern controller that I could see actually being useful, especially in Nintendo games that aren't really using like the bumpers the way that a lot of other modern console manufacturers are. So might as well make it something a little more useful for us.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, if they found some way, like, UIs are getting more cumbersome and complicated, especially in these bigger games. If they can find some way to improve the accessibility of those, that'd be better. We've seen, Valve of all companies has been the one that probably experiment with us the most of the Steam Deck, and then the features on the Steam controller and the Steam Deck, where they have like the touchpads on there. It's possible Nintendo experiments with that too. Like maybe instead of the scroll wheel, it's like a touchpad that like a shoulder button that you can sense your finger that you can scroll. I don't know. But I think it was Joey mentioning having good games, and I think the best way to guarantee we have good games immediately backwards compatibility. I've seen the conversation on this go back and forth. We still don't concretely know. Even the rumors seem vague on this. I will die on the hill that Nintendo's done a lot of dumb things over their history. There is no way, there's not a chance in hell the Switch 2 or whatever ends up being called is not backwards compatible with the Switch. It would be baffling to me if they went that route, because you don't want to throw away you don't want to have to ask your fan base to migrate over to an entire new platform, which is already a risk, and not be able to bring what they already have with them. And that sets a bad precedent for the future as well. So I think it will be fully backwards compatible, maybe outside of a few accessories if they end up reinventing how like the Joy-Cons work, for instance. But yeah, I expect that for your entire game library to work as is on Switch 2.
And historically, Nintendo's been good about backwards compatibility, at least
for their handhelds, at least.
Yeah, for the handhelds too. But it seems like every other console generation where they're just like, yeah, you can't play those games on it. Like for the Wii U, the Wii to the Wii U had backwards compatibility for the Wii, but it didn't have for the GameCube. Wii, of course, had backwards compatibility for the GameCube, but of course, GameCube couldn't have Nintendo 64 backwards compatibility because cartridge to disc. So yeah, I totally see it happening unless they completely change the format of the cartridges, which I don't see happening. But even then, I think was the 3DS backwards compatible with DS games? Yes, it was. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have two minds on this. I've been talking to Jack a lot. He has some good points.
Of course.
And I think something that's come up in my mind a lot, a point that I've seen raised, is that does it look a certain way in a business sense to your shareholders, I don't know, to your board, if you come out with this new piece of hardware, your Nintendo Switch 2, and month after month on the eShop top charts, you see Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is number 1. Like, does that look a certain way? And maybe, I don't know, the Nintendo Switch has achieved such freaking market saturation that there's a world in which I could see the corporate spin of don't sell your Switch. You have a Switch. Play your Switch games. And I don't know, because technically, I think there is no. I've seen people be like, well, here are the technical reasons why the Nintendo Switch 2 can't have backwards compatibility. I'm calling bull honky on that.
Yep.
I find that to be ludicrous and weird and pearl clutchy. So I'm not buying into that. But I do think if it doesn't, it will be strictly because they think that there is a reason for their business to not have it. And I don't know. It's hard. It's a hard thing to predict because I think backwards compatibility is one of those things that gets you a lot of goodwill with the gamers, who obviously is the most important audience to get on day one. Your enthusiast sales, make your console look good. So, but at the same time, it's the statistics show that not a lot of people really use backwards compatibility. And those are kind of old statistics, so I don't know if those numbers are really here nor there. But it's tough. It's tough to say. If there's no backwards compatibility on this thing, how much does it hurt sales? What is the dollar amount? And I don't know. It's hard to say.
It would take a little while.
I feel like we've talked about this too, Jake, before. I feel like it's a big blow to your view, to the consumer's view of you. Yeah. If the PlayStation 5 is backwards compatible, the Series X is almost fully backwards compatible with all generations of Xbox, and your system isn't. That's a big blow, and a lot of people are going to be immediately turned off by that. Even if they statistically might not use backwards compatibility that much in the future, they're always going to think of those what if scenarios, oh no, what if I sell my Switch to get this new Switch 2, but I can't play this game on it, So I don't know. I think that's just that's in this day and age, backwards compatibility is almost a must.
Sure. I mean, how much does it dominate the conversation? How much does it come up on somebody's Twitter feed? And if you did have backwards compatibility, something else would be there, something more positive. Like, how much does that hurt your word of mouth, your marketing, and then eventually your sales? Yeah, it's kind of a complex thing, and I find it kind of interesting, and I'm curious how, like, will it, like, in the Nintendo Switch 2 presentation, will it be a moment? Will they go, and all your Nintendo Switch games are playable? You know what I mean? Is it that kind of thing? Does it a jewel on their crown or not? Like, I don't know.
I think it basically is. I mean, I don't know if we'll have a dedicated segment, but they will highlight the fact that it can play previous games. But I think, we don't know how they're going to brand this thing. I still think they'll go with some variant on Switch, because it seems stupid just to drop what's their best-selling platform basically ever, or maybe ever now. And I think for that reason, they'll just be like, yeah, it's a Switch. It will keep playing all the Switch games you already own and all the upcoming ones. This is the only way to guarantee you can play all the upcoming Switch games is by buying the newer Switch. And I think it'll just continue. It's like when there's a new iPhone, they don't necessarily call out like it'll keep playing iPhone games. We know that now. Nintendo will have to in this case, but it's a little bit different. But I think that's their game plan. Like, as long as Switch keeps selling, they'll keep this backwards compatibility and trademark or the platform name. I think they'll just continue running with it. Because Nintendo, the biggest risk for Nintendo is always in the generation gaps. Like, that's when they always, either fall off a cliff or do extremely well. More often than not, they fall off a cliff, and Nintendo wants to minimize that risk. I think they minimize that risk because they have to be fully backwards compatible, and I think too that does allow people who are new to the ecosystem to pick up past games that won't even necessarily feel old. Mario Kart 8 will still look great on the next Switch. I don't care, until maybe Mario Kart 9 comes along, but until then, Mario Kart 8 will continue to look great, and I think that's going to be the case for most of their games, minus Pokemon. And they'll just, and they can just keep selling to, newer, younger gamers.
Yeah. Newer, younger gamers, I feel like that's going to be a big thing with the Switch 2. I've been thinking about this a little bit in terms of like Super Mario Wonder. I think in a lot of ways feels like a game that is trying to get a younger Mario crowd. But We've been talking about some things that we want to see, some features in a Nintendo Switch 2. Let this marinate in the back of your head. I want to come back to it. I think we all are in agreement that Switch will be part of the name, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
do we think? I'm kind of thinking it won't be 2 though.
I don't think
you
it
might
will.
be right.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
I think we're just calling it Switch 2. I honestly hope it's not called Switch 2. Like, I want to be done with that name for some reason.
What if it was TOO? Is that lame or is
Switch
that cute?
also?
Because it's like, imagine like you do your little
Switch
like,
as
logo.
well.
So you've got the logo that does like the Nintendo Switch where it like clicks in, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
What if then it like went sideways and it did like Switch 2, you know what I mean? Like you do
Interesting.
Sure.
Because can you just see that in your mind's eye? You hear the click and now it's Switch 2 and it goes Nintendo Switch 2. You know what I mean?
Interesting. I do see that. Totally.
Yeah,
But-
I can hearing the click twice in a row. I feel like they got
Has
something there. I think
Nintendo
that's-
ever
yeah.
called any of their systems a 2? I don't think they have.
No,
But
they haven't.
there's always a first time for everything.
Whoa,
Right?
never?
Never. It's always been
Yeah.
like
It's always
NES to Super NES, Game Boy Advance, or even Game Boy to Game Boy Color.
Wii U.
Exactly. Yeah, they've never.
Wow, that's crazy. That's honestly nuts. I
And
can't believe that. Yeah,
Another reason too to avoid it is just because I don't know how much it actually matters, but Switch 2 versus PS5, that number comparison just
Interesting.
looks disadvantages a Switch. Yeah, I don't think it'll be. I don't think it'll be called Switch 2. It'll be some kind of it'll be some adjective. Switch 4K, Switch better, Switch I don't know, Switch vibrant, Switch whatever
Super
it is.
Switch Advance I.
I just had the
There we go.
cursed thought of Wii Switch. I just had that cursed thought.
We
and
switch
I
to
was like,
you.
Wait a second. Yeah, I was like, oh my
There
god,
we go.
we
Just combine
switched
everything.
to
The
you?
Super Wii Switch to you.
That's nice. Actually.
Entertainment system.
Yeah. A big thing really quick, I just want to slide it in there, is that all this hardware talk, I also am just like hoping that this hardware lends itself to software features, and I hope they get the spotlight, because every time I feel like we get a new console announcement, it's like we're all just like doing a lot of guesswork about like the actual like hardware and the specs and all of this stuff. Like I hope day one they dive in and they go, invite your friend to a little chat.
Yes.
Talk to them. Like, make a little group, and then like shows like a friends list. Like shows like
Jake, yes, we didn't even touch on this because we're just so used to it not having it. Voice chat. It actually does need straight up voice chat built in now. We can't go another generation. I actually think the voice app isn't as bad as it's made out to be. With that being said, it just needs to be part of the system now. No more apps. Incorporate it into the actual system. Add parental controls to make it safer for everyone, whatever. But it absolutely needs it. Like, we can't go another generation of you not being able to talk to your friends through the console.
If they try to do key console features and stuff them in like a phone app again, if that is at any point part of like the first 3 months of Nintendo Switch 2 discussion, remind me, commenters. Send me a tweet. I will do 1 hour of complaining about this, okay? I will do 1 hour, because I can't. That app is like embarrassing at this point for me. I haven't been motivated to press on that thing a single time, and I hate to admit it, but when it was revealed and when they were talking about it, I actually thought it was a novel idea. And it seemed like a way to have additive elements to a game. Like what Splatoon kind of like flirts with like, oh, there's a shop on there. There's like ways to stay connected to your game when you're away from your system. There's a good idea in there, but nobody was interested in it. So when you turn on that Nintendo Switch app and you're greeted to like 3 icons of Switch games that support it, embarrassing.
Absolutely
Delete.
embarrassing.
Yeah.
I remember when they said, I remember when Edgy said, you don't want to carry your bulky gamer headset around, and then like that iconic image of like the Splatoon connector, like between the headset, the phone, and the Switch. And I'm like, yes, this is a way better solution than a single headset with a single cable. Embarrassing.
I'll be fully honest, I actually do use it every now and then for Mario Party specifically. I use it with my wireless earbuds, and it mostly, like, it honestly works fine for me. Like, it's not, I would prefer it on the console.
How dare you, Andre? How dare you disagree?
That big of a deal. And there is, I will say, just to be play devil's advocate here, there is something handy about being able to like interface with the controls through your phone without having to access like a pause screen or system UI on the Switch. It's like I just have everything right here, and I can like mute someone if I need to, or mute myself without having to dive into like system controls, which is
I agree. That
nice.
Actually is cool. The PS5 actually got that in an update, and I use it. It's really
awesome.
it's really nice. And
we sound like huge hypocrites now. I'm just saying. I'm just
no. I even like this is kind of stupid, but I kind of like this. There's even on the PS5 app, on the PlayStation app rather, you can like join a party with somebody that's playing on their PS5 from your phone. So I don't even have to be. Sometimes I'm just like playing Switch and I want to talk to my buddy that's playing PS5. Go right there. Go on that phone. I'm like, hey, that's how you do it, baby. So
yeah, that's kind of nice, totally.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we wrap this up? Any other features, must-haves, things we expect, or things we are afraid may not make it into the Switch?
Every time we do a video about this, we get some comments from people that are like, I want to see the Switch 2 use. So like my phone has like a folding thing to it, you know what I mean? And sometimes I see people like talk about that and be like, oh man, maybe that's how like you get dual scale. That's not happening. That's ridiculous.
No.
This is for children. Okay, This is no, absolutely not. Stop suggesting that. Okay,
exactly. I know this folding screen tech has improved a lot in the couple years since it's been out, but it's still not at a point Nintendo would feel confident in using it. There's no way. No. A children's device, largely. Not a chance in hell. So
no. Though I will say, I like it quite a lot.
Yeah, I kind of want one too. So
yeah, it's a good time.
But even like I don't see. I mean, it would result in a form factor or a screen aspect ratio that doesn't even match your TV either. It'd just be like a nightmare designing games for that. And
totally.
Remember the first month of Switch? Remember scratching it on the dock? Remember like the stupid concerns that people get with new hardware when it comes out? I'm so over new console owner paranoia. It happens with everything that launches.
My paranoia was justified. My screen got scratched like right away.
Did it really?
It did, and I was so pissed. But luckily I got a screen protector right after. I spent like $40 on it because I'm like, I'm not cheaping out on this. Getting a professional to install it.
We gotta get the kinks, and that's the thing. I think we got like a good base here with the Switch OLED. I think we got a lot of the kinks figured out. I feel like we didn't even talk about the dock. I feel like the dock is going to be some hotness with this thing.
You know what? Actually, yes, Jake.
Let's hit on the dock.
I forgot about this. One of the main things I actually do want, wireless dock. Let
Yes.
me cast my Switch to the TV through a Chromecast-like dongle, where I don't need to drag this giant dock with me everywhere, and the power cord too. Like that actually is the biggest inconvenience to using the Switch. Like I can use it at home, I can use it on the go, but if I want to use it on the TV on the go, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Yes. No, 100%. I agree. I feel like third-party companies figured out this dock thing a while ago. I think like Nintendo had something in a way in the iconography of the dock, in the putting it down, in the Joy-Con on the side. I think that's like very good, iconic design in a way. But I do think we have accepted that and have moved past it. And one of my low-key theories is that I do think the camera in the Switch thing is real, and I could totally see a universe in which that is a big feature. Like they want you, like, hear me out on this. There's a degree to which I think a lot of us, your dock is probably like behind your TV, or it's like out of the way in some way, shape, or form. Like you can't see it. And I bet you they want you to see it. Like they want it to be out. They want it to be something that like is a thing in your room.
Right.
And I keep thinking about this. Like if they put a camera on the Switch and they tell you, they're like, we want you to position it so that the camera can see you when you put it down somewhere. Have some like, I don't know, some like pseudo Kinect technology, if you remember that.
Yeah, I think that might undermine your point, though.
No, I gotta tell you, I could really see them doing that. I really could. I like telling how many people are in the room, doing controller-free gameplay. I think this is something that would be attractive to Nintendo.
Everybody wants to Switch. Let's go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just like assisting in motion control, maybe like having that being an additive element for the motion in the Joy-Con. Yeah, I think that would be cool. But anyways, this is all to say that I do think the dock will look dramatically different when we see it for the Switch 2. It's going to be one of the, like, you're going to look at that Switch and you're going to go, that is a tablet. That looks pretty much like the thing we have, but the dock's going to be hot.
Dock will set apart, yeah. Yeah, I think, you know what actually would be kind of cool is, I mean, it probably wouldn't be that useful, but if the screen, if the dock doesn't cover the screen, you could almost use it as a second screen in some cases. It probably would never be a major feature. It may not be convenient because it's going to be so far away, but it'd be fun if that actually were an option available to developers. Like, hey, you want to display the score of your game constantly on the Switch? Here you go, you know?
That is kind of fun. I see what you mean. Yeah, having it be something you can kind of look at on the side. And I also I want to shout out that dongle idea, because I've been seeing that for so long in my head, that like underneath the kickstand, you like pull out the dongle and you can put it in your TV. I think that is cool. And it makes the Switch like portable in a way that feels revolutionary.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's basically a reverse Wii U. Just make it so I can cast from the Switch to the TV and through this dongle, and that'd be amazing.
And they had that technology figured out with the Wii U. And like the latency on that gamepad,
it was better than the TV you were connecting it to. Yeah.
Shocking. I almost feel like they maybe never got proper credit for how good that was.
Because
that's effectively like remote play. And and it's like really freaking good. Like shockingly cool technology for however many years that thing came out. So by now in 2023, 2024, surely we could shrink that technology down and make it into some cool thing that just like lives somewhere, but yeah.
That'd be nice.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, anything else, everyone, or are we about done here?
I think we're about done.
Yeah.
Jake's processing. All right.
No, I'm just, it's there's always so many things on my mind.
There's a lot.
At some point, I got to do this video again, but it's just about Smash Brothers. It's just about Smash Brothers on Switch 2.
I want to talk about how Smash could evolve on Switch 2. Let's have that conversation soon. So
many paths.
24 players.
There we go. All right, everyone. Well, there you have it. Our rumor roundup discussion on the Switch 2, wherever it ends up being called. Let us know what you think of our thoughts and what else you might be expecting from the console in the comments below. And with that, of course, stay tuned to GameXplain for more on the system once we hopefully find out more. Real quick, we didn't touch on this. When are we expecting it? Now that all this smoke is happening, now that developers have apparently seen it at Gamescom, when are we expecting it?
When are we expecting to see it, or release, or both?
Either.
Both. I'm more curious about when we're going to see it than when it's going to release. Oh man, I have. Is it even going to be this year? I don't know because they have a pretty packed winter lineup.
Yeah.
Fall 2024 release. Fall 2024 release. And everybody's going to think that we're going to see it in the first big Nintendo Direct of the year next year, and it will not show up.
And people will be
mad. Yes, and it will not show up. It'll show up later.
It'll show up in its own contained video presentation, like the Switch did. It's not
totally.
gonna. It's not gonna be. It's not gonna be in a Direct. It's not gonna be at the Game Awards this year. Like, yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, they're gonna focus on hardware first, and they'll flesh out the games later. They may tease some games as we had before, but I don't think it'll be a Switch 2 exclusive reveal for it.
People are gonna go nuts in that first Direct of 2024 when this thing does not show up.
Oh,
it is
man.
gonna be so funny. It is.
It will be. Yeah, I'm hearing. Yeah, I am not expecting it this year. It's Nintendo's biggest season is always holidays. They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot and show off a better version of what they want people to buy this season. It doesn't make any sense. And we already have like a full library of games still coming to the Switch, and probably will even after the Switch 2 is out. Honestly, I think it makes sense just to support the original as long as you can. So yeah, I think I think we'll see it. Yeah, by March around then, and then for later release, maybe that summer or fall. So
plus, I feel like Nintendo just said we've got like 4 different Nintendo Switch bundles that are hitting store shelves this holiday.
Exactly.
There's no way we're seeing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. I already did the closing wrap up, so we're done here. Everyone, thanks for watching. We'll catch you later. Bye.